Welcome back, gamers. Today I'm releasing a video that's going to teach you everything that you need to know about how to play Combat Rogue. This is the second video in my mini-series that teaches you how to play all three Rogue specs optimally for PvE. So if you haven't checked out the first one for Assassination, my editor Ducky is going to put one somewhere on the screen here for you to see. In this guide, I will teach you how to use your opener, your cooldown rotation, your standard rotation, how to optimize your trinket usage, and how to use engineering cooldowns to maximize your DPS, as well as some bonus tips on how to use your defensive cooldowns to net some extra DPS on any bosses that you're fighting. For any questions about the guide, the spec used, glyphs, and armor choices, feel free to join our Discord, where we have a rapidly expanding community of people ready to answer any and all questions that you could have related to anything surrounding the Rogue class. Now on to the video. For the opener, you're going to very simply stealth near the boss without pulling. Then, you're going to pre-pot into a Sinister Strike on the boss immediately, pop Slice and Dice, then immediately rip Adrenaline Rush with any racial abilities, Synapse Springs, and then Revealing Strike. From this point, you're going to spam Sinister Strike until 5 combo points and Eviscerate. Then, you're going to rinse and repeat by Revealing Striking at the start of your combo point chain and spamming Sinister Strike until 5 combo points, until which point you reach Deep Insights. When you reach Deep Insights, you are going to wait until right before the end of your Adrenaline Rush, then pop Killing Spree while Deep Insights is active so that you're benefiting from the attack speed bonus from Slice and Dice, Adrenaline Rush, and any other on-use or proc-based trinket bonuses for a massive Killing Spree damage boost. For the standard rotation, your goal is to use Revealing Strike at 0 to 3 combo points. It's generally easiest to use at 0, and then Sinister Strike to 4 combo points, and at 4 combo points, you're going to Gouge, then Evis. Some people are probably wondering why I just mentioned Gouge there. With the spec and glyph changes in Cataclysm, Gouge is now something that you can spec into and reduce its energy cost to 15 energy. We also get to pair this nicely with the glyph of Gouge, making this a very cheap and effective way to generate combo points that nets us a whopping 700 DPS increase over not utilizing it. The only time we don't want to be using Gouge is when we are in an energy surplus, as it does low damage by comparison to Sinister Strike and doesn't benefit from Bandit's Guile, which is precisely why we don't use it during our opener, and we won't be using it during Adrenaline Rush. And while we're on the topic about when not to use things, let's talk about Revealing Strike. Revealing Strike benefits our offensive abilities, but what it doesn't improve is Slice and Dice. For a lot of players, you will generally be choosing combat for most cleave fights, for especially fights like Alphys, Magma, Ascended Council, and maybe even Chokeall. Generally speaking, when using combat on single target fights, you won't really ever have to worry about mismanaging your Revealing Strike or losing it even if you did misuse the ability, because you will be using Eviscerate to justify the Revealing Strike at any given time. But on cleave fights, you need to pay closer attention to when Slice and Dice needs to be refreshed. Because of the slowed energy regeneration while Blade Flurry is active, if you find yourself with a Revealing Strike on the boss and your Slice and Dice about to fall, you will often notice that you will have to reapply Revealing Strike for your next Evis. So rather than blindly sticking to the rule of Revealing Strike at 0 to 3 combo points every single time, pay attention to when your Slice and Dice timer is about to fall off, and forego using Revealing whenever you would be spending those combo points on Slice and Dice. Now let's talk about some cheeky min-maxing that can be used in some one-off situations to net us a DPS increase over simply Evis spamming as our only finisher. Rupture was the cornerstone and most effective finisher in Wrath for combat rogues, but this time around it's mainly used by Assassination and sub-rogues as part of their core rotation. Combat doesn't often use Rupture because most of the time it's a DPS loss over using Eviscerate, but if any of you watched my last video for Assassination, you will remember we mentioned and explained Snapshotting. Snapshotting is when you have a bunch of cooldowns rolling that can benefit your attack power. In this example, we'll use the easiest ones: Synapse Springs, your pre-pot, and Landslide. All of these buffs add AP modifiers to Rupture. Pair this with Revealing Strike, and you have a very, very powerful dot that beats out your normal rotation of just spamming Eviscerate. Sadly, the complicated part about this is that we only ever really want to use Rupture during our shallow or moderate insights, and generally only want to Rupture outside of Adrenaline Rush and Bloodlust windows. So whenever you have the chance to use Rupture during shallow or moderate insights while you have some sort of attack power modifiers rolling, feel free to rip a 5 combo point Rupture for some extra DPS. The damage of Rupture in shallow and moderate insights will increase as you roll over into a Deep Insights, which is why this ends up netting us a DPS bonus in the first place. But if you decide to not use Rupture at all, it's okay. Rupture Snapshotting for combat is a very min-maxy type of DPS gain, which only nets you roughly 50 DPS bonus anyways, and isn't putting a massive gap between you and other rogues. Oh, and if all of that wasn't enough, you also will never use this while Blade Flurry is active, so for any of you just trying to use combat for an AoE spec, you have nothing to worry about here. I'll post a screenshot here from Backstabi, the man who made the WoW sim for rogues, about the parameters around Rupture. Go ahead and pause to read. Outside of that, just make sure you keep full uptime on Slice and Dice, revealing Strike at 0 to 3 combo points when you intend to use an Eviscerate for your spender, and use Gouge whenever you're at 4 combo points and Energy Starve. Something else that I want to mention before we move on to the Trinket section specifically for combat is Redirect and how it interacts with Bandit's Guile. Redirect allows us to transfer our combo points to another target. That part is fairly simple to understand. But for combat, Redirect also transfers whatever insight we gain from Bandit's Guile as well, and because of that interaction with Redirect, it's extremely important to use this whenever we are target swapping, even if we gain minimal combo points from it. Luckily for combat, Relentless Blades reduces the cooldown of this ability as well as our cooldowns, which leads me to the Trinket section. In Phase 1 of Cataclysm, we have access to 4 different types of trinkets, the first being on-use trinkets like Unsolvable Riddle, with a 20-second on-use and a 2-minute CD. Then we have trinkets like Press Doors, which is a 15-second proc-based trinket on a 1.25-minute CD. Trinkets like Unheeded Warning with a 10-second proc on a 50-second CD, and trinkets like Fluid Death, which offer a permanent passive bonus so long as we are attacking the boss. Trinket optimization is a little bit harder to manage for combat than it is for assassination because our burst windows rely on whenever we essentially get Adrenaline Rush and Killing Spree back, which can be random based off of the RNG of Relentless Blades and how often we use our finishers, as well as Deep Insight windows and Trinket proc windows. Timing all of these things together can be difficult, and oftentimes you won't be able to get all these procs to line up. The best trinket options in Phase 1 for Cataclysm for combat are 1.25-minute CD trinkets like Press Doors and Key to the Endless Chamber, and permanent on-use trinkets like Fluid Death depending on fight length and when we've last popped the 1.25 minutes versus when the boss dies. On a single target fight, you can generally guarantee almost 1 to 2 killing sprees and 1 adrenaline rush every single minute. Then for Deep Insights, we can guarantee roughly 1 to 2 every 1 minute, but this by no means is an exact science and can depend deeply on how fast you're capable of getting into Deep Insights, which can be based very heavily on your haste ratings. So I said it before and I'll always say it again, sim everything always to get the most educated answer for your current gear. When we talk about trying to line cooldowns up with these different types of procs, our goal is to try and focus on roughly when the boss dies in our current raid environment. For example, for me, with my guild, we kill Ascended Council at a pace that allows me to get 3 adrenaline rushes off while cleaving the whole time, and I hold my 3rd adrenaline rush for the last phase. I am cleaving, so with that being said, I am getting less finishers off than normal in a single target fight, but for example's sake, let's say the boss dies at 4 minutes. That means I can plan for enough wiggle room to fit in 3 waves of cooldowns and to sit and wait for either my Trinket procs or Deep Insight procs to try and line those up so that I can benefit from both of them with about an extra minute of time to make sure that I get all of those benefits. Balancing all of these procs for the best burst window can be very hard, and my recommendation is to get a good Weakaura pack to help you try and track them with things like Murfin's equipped items, Foji's Weakaura pack, or a Rogue Weakaura pack like Lebowski's Weakaura. All these Weakauras will be linked in my Discord for you to try. Whatever trinket combination you choose, I give the same recommendation to everyone. You should try to collect as many trinkets as possible. As we learned from the assassination sims, Trinket Bis is very complicated and can change based off of boss kill time very quickly, and combat is no different. On some fights, Fluid Death with Press Doors is Bis, and on other fights, Key to the Endless Chamber is Bis, and sometimes it's Eye of Raj, or some other variation with Press Doors. It all depends on the fight length and when your trinket procs and how effectively these procs can be paired with something else. The biggest DPS losses will be for waiting too long to use our cooldowns or waiting for trinket refreshes for too long. So try to line these things up when they're convenient, but if they're not, make sure that you're making good use of them as well anyways. Now let's talk about professions. The 2 best professions came as no surprise. It's tailoring and engineering again, but with jewel crafting and engineering as a close second. Tailoring gives us sword guard embroidery on a 1-minute cooldown. Engineering gives us synapse springs, bombs, and also nitro boost as an extra speed boost to net us a DPS increase in the event where we would potentially get downtime on a boss from the boss moving away or there being some sort of mechanic. Jewel crafting offers us a passive DPS increase in the form of gems. Now let's talk about how to optimize our professions. I have probably made combat sound way harder than it is in reality by this point, but luckily for us, we don't really have to worry about unused trinkets as much as assassination does. So simply put, just use synapse springs at the start of the pull when you pop all your cooldowns during your opener, and every 1 minute thereafter. If you go the tailoring route, you can guarantee that you always pop synapse springs with your sword guard embroidery for a solid burst window every 1 minute. The only time this really changes is on bosses with downtime or on your last minute of a boss fight where you can otherwise line your gloves up with a bigger cooldown than sword guard embroidery. A bigger cooldown would look like using this with adrenaline rush or killing spree or waiting for that deep insight to come up near the last 30 seconds of the boss fight, something of that nature. Now let's talk about racials and how to optimize them. We have Berserking from Troll that offers a 20% attack speed increase for 10 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown. Blood Fury from Orc, that is an attack power CD on a 2-minute cooldown. Worgen, that offers a small speed boost, which could potentially limit downtime on bosses in the event of mechanics happening or a boss moving, as well as some minor passive DPS increases in the form of expertise racials like Gnome that allows us to reforge our stats into more valuable things like haste or mastery. Starting with Orc Control, these are very easy as you will always just rip these at the start of the fight, and generally speaking, you will try to pair these with cooldowns for every use thereafter. As I have said previously though, these cooldowns are fight dependent, and you will want to use these cooldowns based around the fight length and when they are most appropriately paired with these cooldowns. The best time to use both of these cooldowns is usually during a burst window. Let's say the boss is sub 35% and your Rage just popped Lust and that deep insight that you were holding out for just came up while Killing Spree is coming off of cooldown, as well as that Synapse Spring that you were told to hold for moments exactly like this with less than a minute left on the boss fight. You add that 20% increased attack speed or that attack power bonus, and all of a sudden you've got just this giga blast moment at the very end of the boss fight, which feels extremely satisfying. On to defensives. This section is actually going to be fairly short because, in reality, evasion isn't that useful in this raid tier, but Cloak on the other hand has a ton of uses. I'm not going to list all of them verbally, but I'll throw all of them up on the screen so you guys just get an idea of how useful this can be and where it can be used. And that's the video. If you enjoyed, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out the other videos on the screen. Links to my socials and Discord are in the description below. I'll see you next time.